It's safe to say that the need to quit gambling is not often enough to form the foundation of a solid and lasting recovery. We do need to want to stop and to change our behaviours and change our habits before we are able to successfully get ourselves into that recovery and put ourselves on the correct path to a more productive and fulfilling life. However, there are definitely overlaps between the things that force us to quit gambling in a need sense and the things that actually make us want to stop gambling. I, for one, had plenty of opportunities, plenty of signs, plenty of signals that my gambling had got a bit out of control, that my relationship with gambling had become particularly bad. And I noticed and mentally took note of these signs and signals years before I actually made any attempt to get into a lasting recovery. A failed attempt, of course, as I had multiple failed attempts before putting together a string of days and weeks and months and all the rest of it. Because of that, I don't want this video to come from any position of a high horse. I don't want you to think that I'm preaching or that I'm telling you this is what you have to do and, you know, if you're doing this, do that, right? Because these are just things that I had noticed and consciously noticed and taken mental note of that I was doing, things that I was experiencing that were making me question and actually realise that my relationship with gambling had become particularly bad. But they weren't things that I at the time acted upon because I hadn't made that final decision that I wanted to stop. But if you are watching this video questioning your gambling, if you do have concerns about the way your gambling is going and your relationship with gambling has gone a little bit south, right, then if you're experiencing these signs, then take it from me, these are things that maybe shouldn't be ignored. Firstly, just want to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you for clicking on this video. Thank you to everyone who chooses to support the channel in whatever way that is, whether that'll be like, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, doing all that great YouTubery stuff. There will be a link to my Patreon in the description below. Obviously, YouTube doesn't exactly pay fantastically, and I'm trying to sort of free up some more time in my life to make more videos, reach people outside of YouTube, and do other things relating to gambling addiction. So, if you're able to support me in that way, that's much appreciated. If you're not, and that's not your bag, or you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. I appreciate you just watching the videos, and if you do any of those likey, clicky, subscribey things, that'd be much appreciated, and will support the channel as well. So let's talk about these top 5. And they are in no particular order, and they are far from exclusive, and I'm sure there'll be another video like this in the future where I'll come across a whole load of other things, right? So these are just 5, you know, non-ordered things to look out for if you're questioning your relationship with gambling. Firstly, lying. Now, I was touched upon this in a recent video, but if you are living with someone, married, you know, cohabiting, boyfriend, girlfriend, illegitimate lover, and you're coming home late and you're lying to them about, you know, where you've been, why you're late home from work, saying that there's traffic or that you're in the office late or whatever, when in reality you've been at the casino or the bookies or whatever, spunking your money. Or if you're trying to explain why you don't have any money, you know, oh, they didn't do me wages properly or whatever. Or indeed you're lying to cover up the fact you've actually now randomly got some money where you didn't have any previously. You know, because you've actually had a win and now you want to spend the money and you know, you have to justify where this money came from. Whatever it is, if you find yourself lying consistently, and if you find yourself getting to the point where lying becomes second nature, where, you know, you don't even realise you're lying until the words leave your mouth, then it could be a sign that actually this gambling addiction is manifesting itself in some particularly destructive ways. Gamblers, as we know, are inherently very, very good liars. But what we'll find is that if we take that gambling addiction away, the ability to lie, the desire to lie, particularly those closest to us, is so far outside our own moral comfort zone, we would never dream about doing it in the majority of circumstances. But when we're in the midst of an addiction, then we find that these lies just become second nature. So if you are finding that you're lying to those people closest to you, sometimes about the most innocuous things they may not have even questioned anyway, and you're fabricating stories in order to cover up what your behaviours are, then that could be a warning sign that, you know, you are gambling too much and that it's actually taking over significant parts of your life, apart from just your finances. Which takes me on to the second point, which is covering up gambling losses. Now, this isn't a case of, you know, borrowing money to make sure the rent's paid. This is covering up financial gambling losses in order to hide from yourself the true extent of your gambling. So let me give a personal example, right? This is a fairly common scenario in the life of gambling addicted Phil. I would have some money. I would have just got paid. Okay, and I think, well, what I'll do is I'll have a quick 50 quid on the online casino, say. Okay, I gambled in many forms, but we'll use that as an example. I'll have a quick 50 quid on the online casino. I can afford that. I've just been paid. That's part of my disposable income. No problems. So once I've disposed of that part of my disposable income, that 50 quid, I would then redeposit and redeposit and redeposit. And say, for example, in this hypothetical scenario, I lost £500. Now, it could be that I could actually afford to lose that £500. It would certainly bloody hurt, but it's not going to cause any major substantial issues in my life, i.e. my rent's already been paid, my bills are covered, etc., etc. But there would be an inherent desire, a subconscious desire for me to cover up that loss, if only to myself, in order to placate the emotions that arise from such a situation. So I would then go and try and find somewhere where I could borrow the amount of money that I just lost so that I'd put my bank account back onto parity. So basically I'd felt subconsciously that I'd put myself back in the position I was before I'd started. Now, of course, this had implications because my credit rating was awful because of my gambling addiction. I was borrowing from subprime lenders. So not only had I lost 500 quid, I'd now lost all the interest I'm inevitably going to pay on this money I've just borrowed to cover up this hole in my finances. But this wasn't a financial issue. Like I say, this wasn't because I needed the money to pay the rent. This was because if I had to look at my bank account, if I had to look at my bank statement and see that that £500 had come out in 50 quid, 100 quid chunks, whatever, then I would have to address and accept that that was damage caused by my gambling addiction, which would then consciously force me to take stock and maybe take action on quitting, which I didn't want to do at that point. This is another one. This was sort of quite specific to me playing slots, but this will certainly, resonate, I'm sure, with a lot of you guys. And this was when a gambling recovery, be that a complete recovery, i.e. win all your money back at the last minute, or even a partial recovery, well, that's good, I've got half my money back. When that sensation of catastrophe averted becomes significantly more pleasurable and has a significantly better impact on your mood than winning. Okay, and this was something I experienced very early on. When I was gambling, say I was playing a FOBT in a bookies, which again was a fairly regular occurrence. If I went in with a wallet full of cash, because I like to carry cash, because well, they're gambling tokens, aren't they? I went in £500 of cash and I'd fed all the notes in the machine. And then I was 500 quid in, and very last couple of spins, I get a jackpot and get me 500 quid back. That elation I got from that recovery, that crisis averted, was so much stronger than going in, sticking a tenner in and winning 500 quid, which, I guess has a transient, fleeting, pleasurable impact. But certainly nothing in comparison to the effect, the psychological, lift I got from getting my money back. And the reason that that was such a psychological boost was because I had averted crisis. And once again, as in my last example, if I have managed to prevent any financial damage, and again, that might not have even been money I needed for anything else, but it may have been. Right? I have avoided financial carnage, which means that for at least one more day, I don't need to take stock of my gambling addiction because no harm done. Right? No foul done. Because I'd basically got myself back to parity in the same example as borrowing money to cover up losses. I had managed to avoid having to think about the damage I was causing my finances and other aspects of my life for another day. Now, this takes me on to another point, and this is actually the reason I made this video in the first place, because this was something I was thinking about. And this is quite specific to slots, but I'm sure, with a little bit of tweaking, you could apply this mentality to any form of gambling. And that is expectation of an event. So, I put that terribly badly. If you're playing a slot machine, okay, and a bonus rolls in, say, okay, we all know the type. A bonus comes in. Now, if you think, oh, that's good, a bonus, I wonder what I'll win. All right, fair enough, no problem. But if a bonus rolls in and you think, thank God for that, thank fuck for that, finally, I've got a bonus. Right, as long as this can only pay, as long as this pays 100 times mistake, or as long as I get half my money back from this, then all will be fine. That is ringing alarm bells. It could just simply be that you are playing at a stake that's too high for your bankroll. So your relief from getting that bonus and just thinking, well, thank fuck that's coming, is because you're actually playing beyond the level to which you can afford. But more likely, it's because you've gambled far too much money, and once again, you are putting an expectation on this bonus, this thing you have no control over, to put yourself, again, and you see a theme arising here, put yourself back to parity So once again, you can walk away not having to, not having to accept the damage you've caused, and not having to take stock of your relationship with gambling. So if you're thinking, thank fuck that's finally come in, right, rather than thinking, oh, that's good, I've got a bonus, and you're then putting expectations onto a pre-programmed, pre-orchestrated, whatever event that you have no control over as to how much money that's going to pay you back and the massive impact that's going to have on you positively or negatively depending on the outcome of this feature, then that is a distinct warning sign that I experienced many, many times that I should have taken stock of and realised, well, actually, I'm playing beyond my budget here. I'm playing beyond my financial limits, and I'm playing beyond the position with which I am psychologically comfortable. And finally, restlessness. This is a very significant one, and this can be whether you win or lose. If you feel restless after a session of gambling, and you feel that the only way that you're going to rectify that restlessness is with further gambling, then of course this should be a red flag, and I experienced this many, many times, and I should have taken stock again and realised this was a substantial red flag that gambling was getting the better of me, that I had lost control, and that my relationship with gambling had become a particularly bad relationship. It might be that you have gone out and you've had a successful day gambling. You've won. You've actually made a good amount of profit and you've got cash in your hand and cash in your wallet and everything feels good. But you're restless. And now the reason that you're restless is one of two reasons, in my experience. Firstly, yes, you might have won, but did you have the gambling fix that you were looking for? I've spoken about this before, how sometimes if you get a win too early on in your gambling session, you continue on until you lose because you haven't had that fix. Yes, you've won, but if you walk away, then you're not gambling. So you want to keep gambling. So it might be that actually you walked away with profit because some bit of your common sense brain has told you that's the thing to do, but you haven't actually supplicated the gambling addiction. So you're going to be there restless, waiting until the next opportunity you can go back and effectively complete your session. It might also be that you've had a substantial gambling loss. And then we come around to what is one of the most sort of cliched issues with gambling addiction, and that's the desire to go back and win your money back, to chase your losses. I've tried to avoid cliche in my videos, but this time I'm going to say this one is very, very true. As gambling addicts, we cannot win because we cannot stop, and that is absolutely true. Whether we win and we've got a wallet full of cash and we want to go and gamble some more to either try and win some more or to complete our gambling session, or we lose, and we'll use whatever funds, whatever resources we have to go back and try and win back our losses, we're never going to end up in a positive situation. We're never going to end up in the black, because whatever happens, win or lose, we're always going to go back to gambling. So that's 5 reasons, 5 signs, 5 signals that I really, really should have taken more notice of earlier on. I'd like to say there were things I didn't notice, but like I said at the front end of this video, I did notice. These are all things that I'd consciously made a mental note of, or consciously realised that I was doing, and that did make me realise that my relationship with gambling was all out of kilter. But there were things that I didn't act upon because I'd rather bury my head in the sand, hence getting back to financial parity all the time. I'd rather bury my head in the sand to allow this addiction to flourish, for it to grow, and because actually continuing to gamble was the path of least resistance. Quitting was hard. The concept of life without gambling was almost too alien to me to fathom, and I couldn't really at that point get any kind of grip on it. Hope that's interesting. Like I say, not preaching anyway. These are just things that I wish I'd taken stock of sooner. So maybe if this video's made you think a little bit more about your relationship with gambling, then I guess my work here is done. But stay safe and sane. Like I say, thanks to everyone who continues to support the channel in whatever way that might be, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, guys.